All right, welcome back to the Ohio MMA Podcast. Joined today by none other than Mr. Shock and Rock himself, Asher Frederick. First time on the podcast, and first time we've actually done an interview. I think in a while. I did done one in a long time ago, but welcome in. This is episode 3 of the podcast. You made it on like early.
Yeah, thanks, man. I'm super grateful to be on this.
Yeah, awesome. So yeah, I wanted to bring you on. I called your fight. You won your pro debut on Saturday night at Ohio Combat League 25. Unanimous decision over Haseeb Khetab. And talk about it, man. I know that I know my feelings on the fight, and it sounded like you weren't super happy with your performance. You won a unanimous decision, and I thought you controlled the fight throughout. So what was your thoughts on the fight, and what do what do you think you could have done better? Things like that.
I feel like during the fight, I could have gotten the takedown sooner and a little bit cleaner, and I kind of abandoned the game plan because I had success really early, just finding his legs with kicks and peppering him from range. Because after the first couple of exchanges, I could tell he was just coming to just try and knock me out. So as soon as I got his speed and his timing down, and I just kept kicking his leg, taking out all that power from that backhand. Um, you know, I got a little like, okay, yeah, I'm just gonna sit here and beat your legs up, and I stayed on the feet a little bit longer than I would have liked for the game plan. But then the second round, I got the takedown, and that's where I started to just smash him and sap his gas, taking the third round, just right back on the wrestling. You know, that's what I wasn't happy about, just not getting to the wrestling soon enough and not listening entirely to my coaches.
Yeah, that's interesting because I always try to hear, as much as I can with the coaches, and especially, and the interesting was in the first run on the feet, I could hear, them calling out combos, and within like half a second, you were throwing those combos. Um, I compared it during commentary. I was like, it's like Josh over there, like playing a video game,
Yeah.
and like you're like that type of fighter. Like how much, and now this is your was your 10th amateur fight, and of course you have a bunch of wrestling background, but how much of it is kind of like that where it's like I know you're obviously in there thinking, but you're also having your coach think for you, and you're like how much of it is like the balance of like you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, but also you're trusting them to give you the right coaching.
It's really it is a balance. Most of the stuff, like when I'm just throwing jabs and kicks, it's kind of just like flow fighting, just moving, just trying to move my body, and then seeing what work. I'm trying to figure out what works, like with my jabs and my kicks, and just moving and never leaving my head in the same spot. And then when they tell me to do something, like there was at one point in the first round where my coach said, "Give me a 1-3-2," and I immediately threw it. And it's having certain combos built in that I can throw while I'm moving, and it's being coachable. I feel like, and
Yeah,
that's what makes the biggest difference.
yeah, that was what I think I said that too, that I mean, you've been doing this for a long time. Like you were a little kid running around when I first started. I'm not even that old, but you're really young. But I remember you running around all, and coming to fights, and even a few times when I went into Ronin, I saw you there. But finding that balance. But that was the thing that I think that from me, and I think when I talked to Josh is that you're probably one of the fighters that he's had that he had is the most coachable, and in terms of like I think you put a huge amount of trust in your coaching, and because you see, hey, this is what I want to do. How much, what's that mindset like? Because I know that there's guys, of course, that are hard headed. There's guys you train with that are pretty hard headed, that we won't say any names, but but like, there's that balance too, right? Like do you really feel like, you put all that trust in your coaches, and being coachable, and I know you have multiple coaches too. What's your I know you have Josh Williams, and then you still train at Varus, right?
Yeah. I still train at Varus. That's my uncle, but I put all of my trust in those guys because, I mean, Josh has coached Dan Spawn, who's still in the PFL. He's fought in Bellator and he's been on the Ultimate Fighter. Travis Davis, PFL, Bellator. Um, Max, he just got signed to Bellator.
Yeah.
So Josh, I know Josh knows what he's doing, and that's why I trust Josh so much with what he's doing. And then my uncle, who runs Varus, you know, we work certain combos and we do a lot of strength conditioning. That's why my gas tank is off the chain. But I know from my training with both those guys that they're not going to feed me wrong information. They're telling me things that are going to help me and benefit me and help me succeed and make it to where I want to be.
Yeah. That's the other thing that I noticed too, and this was not the first fight where I noticed it, but your gas tank is off the charts. I know that a lot of fighters like to do running and things like that. How do you what's your like your go to way to stay in shape?
Honestly, man, I don't run. You know, I think just training and just hard wrestling, hard sparring, you know, and I mean I work at a landscaping job 8 hours of the day, and I'm up at 4 a.m. training, going to work, then training again after work, and then coming home and sleeping. I think
Yeah.
that just constant, just the grind. It's like I let my body recover after weigh-ins, and I'm just relaxed, and then boom, now I'm fighting, and it's like I haven't used any energy at all, and I think that's why my gas tank is the way it is.
Yeah. Um, you talked about weigh-ins. This was your first fight at 125 going down to flyweight, and I think you probably are always knew that that's where you would end up. But as an amateur, you spent the whole time at 135. I know that sometimes it can be a little easier to find fights at 135. But what was the thought process? And because some guys, if they're dropping, they might want to do a weight cut like before they make their pro debut because that's a lot to add on. And I know you had a fight in Kentucky where you got to do a day before weigh-in, so you had a little bit you had that experience of having the day before. But what was the weight cut like? And do you think your future is at 125?
The weight cut, you know, I work with my nutritionist Eddie Rovac. He owns Immortal Diet Optimization. I started this camp at about 148, 149, and he had me down to I believe 135 the week before the fight, and then after that we just monitored my diet, and I ended up only, you know, I water load and all that, and I cut from like 138 all the way down to 125 and a half, and you know it was hard. It was hard. I mean, I thought I was gonna die in the sauna with the last 5 pounds that I had to cut.
Yeah, that and did you kind of regret not doing like a fight at 125 as an amateur, or do you feel like that was the right call?
I think it was the right call because in high school, my first year wrestling, I was a 125er, and I wrestled like half a year at 125, and I could do it, but back then I didn't know, you know, how to control my explosiveness and my energy, so I would just go balls to the wall, and I would think, oh, my body just can't hold up. But with my nutritionist, we figured out, okay, you can still get to 125, be healthy, and since you're eating right and actually taking care of your body, you'll be all right. And
Yeah.
that's what happened in the fight.
And in the fight as a pro, you get to use head kicks and elbows and all the fun stuff. And I feel like that was honestly the turning point, the key in the fight when in the second round you hit him with a nasty elbow and on the ground, and you were in guard, I think, or at least half guard at the time. And from that point on, I could see that it was a different game for him. He couldn't breathe. His nose was busted up. Probably, I don't know if his nose was broken, but that was the thing too. We were talking about like you can't simulate things like that, like not being able to breathe in a fight and having being able to inflict that much damage, with the new tools, the elbows. And I know you threw a lot of kicks. I don't know if you threw any head kicks, but um, and then just the 5 minute rounds. But how do you think that you transition to the pro ranks and from that standpoint?
I think I transitioned pretty well. You know, I was actually, I mean, I've been looking for a fight for 8 months. So I've just spent the last almost year just working elbows, head kicks, knees to the head, you know, finding things from different positions. And I think the elbows really didn't end up making a difference because there was that one elbow that I landed that you're talking about in the second round, and it just looked like there's a fucking zipper Halloween mask. And literally, I just saw blood all over, and I'm just like, damn.
Yeah, it was
Boom.
nasty. And I noticed it, and it's always those, like, especially if you're in guard, like you're not, it's hard to get a lot of space, and that's the one thing I noticed it as soon as it happened. I was like, man, it's so short, little like elbows that seem to do the most damage. And yeah, you could see like he couldn't, he like blew his nose in between rounds, and just blood was streaming everywhere. and I'm like, his nose is broken. I think that, and he couldn't like close his mouth because I don't think he could breathe through his nose. That changes the whole guy's whole cardio. And he still was, coming at you the whole fight. What did you think about the style? Because he definitely is a kickboxer, and had, I actually was able to find like 5 or 6 of his kickboxing fights from when he was in Afghanistan and then moved to the U.S. I think it was last year or maybe a year and a half ago, and he definitely has that same style where he's, I think the on the feet you were able to kind of basically just stay going forward and stay straight, where he was really trying to, do the flashy stuff and stay on the outside. But what do you think about like fighting a fighter like that?
I think it was a good challenge. I mean, I fought a guy who kind of had a similar style down in Kentucky. His name's Justin Thompson. And I mean, I ate 2 spinning hook kicks in that fight. And after that, that was it was just seeing the head kicks and getting adjusted to those. Because in Kentucky, they'll let you die in that kick. They don't give a fuck.
Yeah, they will.
But I learned from that fight, and I took that experience of fighting a flashy striker, and I applied it to this fight. And my coach, my Muay Thai coach, Aaron Boggs, he was working. I believe it was the last 2 weeks, just a 1-2 and hop out, chop the lead leg with the calf kick. So I knew that if I deadened his lead leg and just beat it just a hair, that I would negate a lot of those spinning attacks. And it was interesting. I mean, the kid fucking. I mean, every punch that he threw, he was trying to put my lights out. But I made sure everything that I threw was smart, controlled. My defense was, on point, and he would just wing wild shots. And I mean,
Yeah.
it's easy to knock people out with wild shots, but if you know how to defend and you can, I guess what I'm saying is just be controlled and just know how to weather the shots, you'll be all right.
Yeah, that was the thing too that we talked about during the commentary was it's hard to rely on knockouts at 125, right? Because you even if you have crazy power, it's hard to get that much power, and heavyweights, a lot of times do it. Even like guys at 85 and 205, but at 125, it's really hard living. Like it's going to be tough to gain momentum as a pro if you're trying to knock everybody out. And he's 0-2 now, but he has a really dangerous 0-2 fighter because he's good and he's going to come up and like and shock some people. I think because one of the things you said leading into the fight, and I think he said it too, is this is 2 fighters that are going to be in the in the national organizations and big organizations, and I definitely saw that in this fight. But yeah, so you talked about taking a tough fight, and the you had been taking tough fights since your debut. I mean, your debut, you faced an 0-1 guy, but then you faced 2-0, 1-0, 2-2, 9-5. Then you fought Cam Allgaier, who was 5-0, and you fought Gabe Perea, Justin Thompson, as you mentioned. You went out of state to fight, and then you took another tough fight in your last amateur fight against Vincent Williams. What do you equate that to? Like, just do you feel like that prepared you even that much more to go into the pro ranks?
Yeah, 100%, man. I mean, just as an amateur, you want to take tough fights because then when you become pro, you know what it's like to actually fight. A lot of people, they take easy fights and they're like, "Oh yeah, I'm ready to go pro," and like a guy like Trayvon Eller, he's a fucking monster. I mean, he's
Yeah.
knocked everybody the fuck out. But if you're doing that to people, and this moment you meet resistance and it becomes a fight, because a fight can only happen if you meet resistance, you know?
Yeah.
And that's like my thing is like, I like to be challenged. I live for, the competition. I mean, obviously I want to become rich with fighting, but I mean, I would do this shit for free because it's the purest and truest form of competition. And that's what I love about it.
Yeah. That is interesting. I work for Tapology, and people love them and hate them, the Tapology rankings, but it's based on who you fought, when you fought them, how you're finishing fights, and sometimes you'll see guys like, oh, I'm 6-0 or 7-0, but how am I only ranked seventh? And like, well, look who you fought. Like you fought a bunch of 0-0 guys or a guy that was 2-6 and things like that. You were the number one ranked amateur bantamweight coming into this fight, And the reason is because you took tough fights. I mean, you fought, Gabe Perea, who was only 3-2 at the time, but that's a tough fight, and that was a very, very good, entertaining fight. And I thought you won the fight, but it was
Yeah.
because I called it and I was like, man, this is a good fight and good entertaining fight. And then two guys again who are going to be good as pros, but you took every single I think tough challenge that came ahead of you, including multiple times, like I said, going into Pennsylvania fighting Cam Allgaier, going into Kentucky fighting Justin Thomas and or Thompson and B2 guys in their backyard. You weren't afraid to go out of state. So that was definitely really interesting too. The last thing I wanted to ask you, so Ronan, I mean, for the past, the gym's been around, I think almost a decade now, but now there's so many fighters, and it's interesting that it's all at the same time. That I think you were the sixth fighter, or well, I guess Max technically didn't make his pro debut, but by my count, the fifth fighter, and then Max, of course, is going to make his pro debut. But Skylar Bray, Kobe Woodall, Jade Shealy, Max Metzger, Melvin Harris, and you all making your pro debut within a few months of each other. What's it like, training at a gym where not only there's so many great fighters and great amateurs, but fighters who are kind of that you train with a lot, who are similar-ish in size, and all kind of being in the same point in your careers, and all making your pro debuts around the same time.
Man, it's actually really crazy. I mean, Max and I were talking about that about a year ago, and we were all like, "It's so crazy that we're like all here at the exact same, like being there all there at the exact same time. Like there's no way to plan that. Like that, it's just like the way time works. It all just happened and it blended together, and now we're all a part of this martial arts journey together. And maybe we all go different paths from here, but at the end of the day, there's a brotherhood, and I think that's what keeps us all together. Is that brotherhood that we have, because we all were literally went through the amateur ranks together at the same exact time, and we were all there for each other's fights, warming up. Some of us fighting on the same night, and it's just like it created a brotherhood, and that's just it's amazing, and it's a blessing that I've been surrounded by these guys.
Yeah. Um, it is kind of, it is fascinating because, like I said, I've called, fights of all of you, and I did kind of like start taking notes. I'm like, oh, there's like this next. I mean, you've had, Dan Spawn and Travis, who are kind of on that, have already made that next level, and then you guys have, of course, so many fighters that are all making your pro debut at the same time, which was really cool. And then you've also got more people coming up even through the pipeline. You got Mark Antonelli. And there was someone else that I was thinking that. Oh, I was wondering what I saw Taylor Adair cornered. Did he corner Melvin? Like, what's he been up to? Like, that's a name I haven't seen in a while. But yeah, there's always fighters coming out of Ronan. Who's someone that you think is maybe on that next tier of up and coming fighters?
Oh, dude, it's got to be my man Mustafa Albermani. Okay,
Oh,
that kid, he if that kid gets on your back, it is literally a nightmare. He's just, I mean, that's my main training partner right now because Skylar's been out. But that kid, once he starts putting it together, he's gonna be a pro. Like I could see him doing exactly what I did as an amateur with ease. Like he lost two fights. He lost to Anthony Jagle, who's
yeah,
a stud. But I mean, Mustafa, I don't think he got taken down once at all. And that Jagle kid was a D1 wrestler, and Mustafa never wrestled a day in his life, which is amazing. And and then he fought Tony Lichtenberger, which when I saw that dude in the cage, because I cornered Mustafa for that fight, that
yeah,
dude was thick.
right. Then that was at 135, right? So he
Yeah,
actually went up a weight class.
yeah. But I mean, Mustafa, he's going to be somebody to watch out for here soon. Um, Mark Antonelli, everybody knows who he is. He's going to be a real problem once he goes pro. And I'm trying to think if there's anybody else really that's going to be fight or. Nah, I think that's really it, man. And but Taylor Dare, he took some time off, to train for a triathlon and stuff. He's but he's gonna eventually fight again here soon, I think.
Those people are crazy. I do try. I did a marathon and triathlons. I'm like, yeah.
Yeah.
I do, and I'm not even fast, but doing it at like my speed, at like old man speed, is hard. So I'm doing another one here in like a month. But yeah, that's why like I always like I'm interested in seeing like what fighters do for cardio and things like that. And they know that like you don't train or that you don't run, that you just you train is kind of fascinating to see because like your cardio, I don't think I've ever seen any fight where I'm like, oh, Asher's tired. Like you look like you're ready to go like 15 rounds every time. So and that's because you probably do in the gym. Like you probably go, you know, 10, 15 rounds, I would say. And that's probably what Josh makes you do. And
Yeah.
like clinch work, probably just 10 rounds.
Yeah. Yeah. I say that time around.
But yeah, man, congrats on the win. I do. If there, what do you want to do? Do you want to get back in there quick? Do you want to take a little bit of time off? What's your? It looks like you're not pieced up too much, which is looks good. And you can walk and I mean that I don't know. The last time I saw someone that had like welts on, not just like a lot of times guys just throw like kicks and you see like the back of the thigh or something. He had them on his calves, both back of his thighs, his rib cage. It was wild how many like big red welts. And I don't, I'm if he can walk. I mean, this is 2 days after the fight. He probably still can't walk. Like it was nasty. But yeah, what do you want to do? You want to get back in there fast, or you want to take some time off, or what's next for Asher?
I think I'm gonna, take this week off, recuperate, let my body heal, decompress. But then I think I want to get back in there in August or September. I want to get back in there. It'll be a little bit of a, cut, and it'll be a little hard, but I think I'll be okay.
Yeah, do it while you're young, man. You're what are you 23?
Yeah.
Yeah, do it while you're young. It doesn't get any easier. So yeah, so take like I was talking to Dylan Budka. He's 23 and he just had his seventh pro fight, and he started fighting in 2020. And I'm
Yeah.
like, he had I think 9 amateur fights in a year, and then now he has 7 pro fights in a year and a half. And I'm like, yeah, dude, I wish that I because now I every once in a while I'm like I should get back in and train and maybe take a fight, and like I'm like no, I don't have the energy. But then I go out and run marathons, so I got the energy for that. So it's just not getting punched in the face is nice.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, thanks so much for joining me. Anything you want to mention? You want to give a shout out to?
Yeah, yeah. I'd like to first of all thank. I'd like to. I wish I got a post-fight interview for OCL, but I'm just gonna do that here. I'd like
Go
to
ahead.
thank my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. I'd like to thank all my sponsors, all my teammates, all my friends, my girlfriend, and just everybody who came out and supported. It was an honor to show my skills, for the world to see.
Awesome. Yeah, it's always an honor to call your fights. I know that no matter what, like you're like the knockouts and the quick submissions are fun, but like a fighter that can truly like fight and you have that. I think you have a good balance of like being a true martial artist, but then also being a fighter at the same time, right? Like like some guys are like I'm a martial artist, and they're like I don't like Leo Machida type of guy. But then you have on the other end, it's like people that are just fighters. Like I don't give a shit about martial arts. I just want to beat people up. You're like that balance, right? That mix of like fighters that you're you know how to do both. I think it makes if that makes sense. And so
Yeah,
you're just an entertaining fighter, and those are the types of guys I like. That where no matter where the fight goes, you're gonna be happy and you're gonna find a way to win. And yeah, that's why I love calling your fights and love watching your fights.
thank you. And that is actually the craziest thing because I I see that in myself too. Like he pointed to the center of the ring at the first round, and I was like, I was
Yeah,
about to just fucking go, and then I thought, wait, I'm winning this round. Why the fuck am I gonna throw it away?
yeah.
So I backed up. I'm like, nah. And then he took another step forward. I'm just like, nah. And then he fucking started running at me, and I'm like, oh shit.
Yeah. Well, and we that was the other thing too that we were like, man, Asher, like he was trying to get in your head doing that, of course, like, and he wants you to stand right there. But we thought that like you weren't really running. I mean, I guess maybe you were, but
Oh
like
no, bro! I
you,
sprinted. I was fucking running.
you're like that can get into his head too, like him like just like doing something that's totally unexpected, right? That like he's you're putting him off his game. But yeah, I haven't rewatched the fight yet, but I'm gonna go back and rewatch it because it was such an entertaining fight, and it was 15 minutes of. I know, like I said, you weren't happy with the the wrestling, but your stand up looked great, and just an entertaining fight. And I think that's at the end of the day what people want, right? Like they want to fight. Of course, you want to win, but like you want. I'm sure you had there's like some bit of you where you want to make sure you entertain and win fans and be able to make it to the next level because that's a part of the game too.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
but yeah, man, thank you so much for joining me. I'm excited to get you on, and yeah, we'll be back next week with another episode.
All right, okay, man. Thank you so much.
Yeah.